So thank you very much, Stella. And I'm going to do a quick blast to everybody. Um, some of you know about PLAO, the journal, Prior Learning Assessment Inside Out. We have a call out for looking at how PLA and the workplace, the different types of things that are going. So Stella, please go look at our call as well as anyone else on here. I think many of the presentations today would fit into that. I also want to do a land acknowledgement. I live, learn, work, play, and make art in the ancestral homeland of the Abenaki Nation in the area that the colonists named the Northeast Kingdom, which is in the north part of Vermont in the US. I'm going to move us right along because we're really being the last person. I just want to make sure we kind of go right along. And I want to start off by kind of emphasizing my own position when it comes to really thinking about assessing learning. And so there's a couple of things that I just want to do as a background, and then we're going to move into an interactive activity. So I see that recognition is a basic human need. It's foundational to identity, and that everyone has a right to be recognized. That self-recognition and community recognition are both important, and that in my mind, we often leave out the self-recognition and self-assessment. We kind of train people not to think in that way when both are critical. And one thing that I find very interesting is that the research on persistence in higher education has shown, when you look across the research, is that people are more likely to persist if they feel connected, and that's a form of recognition as well. So when we look at the research, it really comes down to when people feel that they're being recognized, they feel more connected and more likely to persist. And there are different recognition systems. And my hypothesis, or my thesis of what I set forward, is that there really is only one way to recognize, and that's when you completely see somebody and completely recognize them. We can have misrecognition, which is when I see you in my way, but I don't see you fully. Partial recognition is only a part of you that I see, in that, I may already have an idea about what I'm looking for, and I'm only going to look at that piece of it, or not refusing to recognize. And so we see these four formations of it, but all the ones in the shaded area there are a form of no, that it's not a full recognition, and there's really only one full recognition. And I apologize for some of you that you've seen some of these slides before and a couple hours ago, but I'm trying to frame some thinking here in terms of when you look at what we know from research on how the brain learns. There's a couple of very important points here that I think really fit to things that others have been really talking about as well. We bring all our prior learning into any type of learning experience. And so the new learning or emergent learning, they join together and they converge. And so there's no such thing as separating out the prior learning from the new learning. We have to really recognize that. And that the brain is developing these neural networks that are based on relationship. And so it's building these relational learning. And all of that is to prepare for the future. And so really, when we talk about learning, and some cognitions talk about learning as a byproduct of the brain, because it's really trying to set itself up for the future. And it's trying not to be, it doesn't want to go through the relearning just to get prepared. So that's why it sticks around. Three critical parts of this in terms of a system is that self-assessment is part of the way that we learn. And as I was just sort of saying, we've taught people not to self-assess. We don't trust it. And yet it is the way that the brain learns. So if we don't actually look at the way in which people self-assess, we're losing out on part of what how they learn. the inquiry is, at first it's kind of like, what do I know? What do I not know? And then what else do I need to know? How do I figure it out? And so the brain goes into this inquiry mode, and that then leads us to being able to set ourselves up for that future learning, to transfer it. How does this all fit together? Where does it go? How do I do? So we tend to not think about assessing people's learning the way that the brain actually learns. We tend to think about it in terms of, pre-structured ways of, kind of saying, you have this criteria or that criteria that you have to learn. But I argue that we really have to be thinking about assessment from the point of view of how do people actually put it together, and also how do we know how people make those relationships across their learning and be prepared for the future, which kind of changes the conversation. In the way that the kind of the knowledge structures kind of fit together, we really think about the learning is connected, it's embedded, it's integrated, and it's shared. If I had lots of times, I'd go into detail about all of this, but I'm going to zoom through this very quickly. And so as we start to think about assessment, we have these structures that we have these valuing lenses that we're going through. And so as we start to kind of feed through from the field, for the organization, a division, the assessment criteria, the outcome criteria that we have to ask ourselves, are we really assessing what somebody knows and can do, or are we assessing our valuing lenses? And so we need to really be kind of thinking about that. So, what are we really measuring, recognizing, and credentialing as we do all of this work? And there's the question about, as I just said, is it the valuing lenses? Is it when I put together an assessment, is it really about what I think is important, what my knowledge construction is already about, or is it really about what the learner already knows? And so we have to be thinking about these different perspectives. So we are going to move into an activity. Here is the code, and let me see if I can grab. Oops, I can't without going out. I will also put the link in the chat but if everybody would go there, and let me give you just a second to make sure you're in there. There are 3 questions, and you'll get the first question, answer that. That will bring up a second question, answer that question, and that will bring up a third question, and that will answer it as well. And then we will be looking at the compiling of that. This app that you are in is something that I designed specifically to be able to ask these 3 questions, gather it together, and to compile it. So I'm going to stop sharing this. I will put the link into the chat so that everybody can get to it. And then I'm going to go into that program and bring that up in a share. So here's the link. Okay. And then let me bring up.
Nan, I put the link in the chat
as well. Excellent. Thank you. So now you have it twice. Okay. Okay. So people are filling this in, and what I'm going to do is start to share my screen so we can see that filling in. And I'm going to give a few minutes, a good 3-4 minutes, because people need to get through all of the questions. We'll give it like another minute.
You've just about used up the last bit of my brain now.
Okay, well, we've got 10 people who've responded all the way down through. So let me go ahead and generate the summary. In doing that, you also will have access to this summary. And just give me 1 second here because I am trying to move Windows out of my way. It's generating. Okay.
Ding, ding, ding,
There we
ding,
go.
ding,
Okay.
ding, ding.
So we, over the years, in what ways have you been assessed for your learning? Participants reported being assessed through a wide variety of methods throughout their learning journeys, with formal examinations and tests being the most commonly mentioned approaches. Beyond traditional exams, many experience alternative assessment forms, including presentations, written documents, interviews, practical demonstrations, observations, and self-assessment. Several participants also noted informal assessments through discussions and connections, as well as modern online learning platforms with built-in assessments. The diversity of responses suggests that while formal testing remains prevalent, learners increasingly encounter multiple assessment modalities, including formative feedback, reflective practices, and performance-based evaluations. How did these assessments actually capture your learning? There was a strong consensus that traditional assessments often fail to capture learning effectively, with many participants bluntly saying they didn't or did so only partially or not well. Several participants noted, that assessments are gameable and tend to narrow learning focus to what will be tested rather than capturing genuine understanding or learning that occurs outside the formal context. However, some assessment types were viewed more favorably. Observations and applied tasks were credited with demonstrating actual capabilities and growing expertise, while comprehensive certification package that include multiple perspectives, self-assessment plus external evaluation, were seen as more complete. The responses revealed tension between the inadequacy of most assessment methods and the recognition that certain approaches, particularly those involving demonstration, application, and multiple forms of assessment, can partially succeed in capturing learning. Now, the last one, what are some qualities of an assessment that capture learning? Participants identified several key qualities that enable assessments to genuinely capture learning, with themes of authenticity, flexibility, and comprehensiveness emerging prominently. Most emphasize that effective assessment tools should be competency-based, outcomes-oriented, and evidence-based, allowing learners to demonstrate mastery through application in meaningful real-world context rather than artificial testing situations. There was strong support for assessments that offer multiple pathways for demonstration, including self-assessment and self-articulation components, and incorporate verification from multiple sources. Participants also stressed that quality assessment requires significant investment of time, wisdom, compassion, and conversation, and should be learner-centered, transparent, and fair, while adding to rather than merely measuring learning. Where you are, you can click on that report and download it if you would like a copy of it. So I'm going to stop sharing, but it's available for each of you. And I think I just have a minute or so that if anyone wants to make it an additional comment or question.
You've blown everybody away now.
Yeah, right.
You've left the audience speechless.
But what I find is important, and I think I want to start collecting more and more of this sort of input from people, is to really be thinking about how how we look at assessment and really question whether our assessments are getting at what we're really wanting it to assess, and thinking through how to design assessments that is much more about how people create and connect their learning. So, and I think everybody's coming back, Andy.
Is Don back in the room? Don,
Yeah.
you finished over there?
Yep.
Okay.
We're here now.
Yeah, we're all left speechless by Nan, which is a common occurrence when you listen to Nan present. Yeah, thank you very much, Nan. I think we all really appreciated that, and it was fun using that tool, and the results were amazing in such a short period of time. 3 or 4 minutes work. What an amazing outcome.